Hi there, my name is Toby and these are the 9 principles of body efficiency training, and this is number 5, structural isometrics. Now the best way I can explain this to you is in the way we already use it. You see, when you have to cut fruit like this with one hand, what you're doing is dragging the knife through, pushing the knife through, but you've got to do it under control. You've got to stop it at the thumb, or you're going to cut your own thumb. So it's very difficult to do. It requires practice. And if I cut through here like this hard, it requires a lot of force, and the knife is going to just slip through and cut my thumb. So how do I resist that? Well, I've got to push the knife through and resist that at the same time. So I'm holding isometric tension in the knife so that I can stop it when it touches my thumb, or anywhere along I can stop the motion. This is the principle. Now here's another thing we do, flicking out the finger. And now this is actually elastic recoil, and you've got to go back and look at the last principle. But what I'm trying to do is stretch out the finger. It's a specific thing I'm doing, stretching the joints. This is creating an elasticity, and this works like a crossbow. And the thumb, of course, is the trigger. So I'm trying to stretch out, but the thumb resists, and then suddenly it will flick out. And what I'm doing is creating this elastic recoil and releasing it. Now with structural isometrics, I've got to do this all by itself. You see, now the finger is alone, no thumb, no thumb. Take the thumb away. Now I've got to push the finger out but resist it all by itself, and then suddenly let go so it springs out. In the same way, a crossbow. But I've got to create this isometric tension in the finger itself, in the joints in the finger, and then let it go. And it goes the other way. So I'm now trying to bend the finger. I've got to bend the finger in, resist it, and then suddenly let go so the finger flicks inwards. Very tricky to do, and you can play around with this. But what I'm doing is creating isometric tension, and then to create an elastic recoil with this isometric tension, then release it. Now the elbow, you can see a bit more. Bending and straightening the elbow under resistance. So now if I want to bend the elbow and I resist, I'm really trying, take the hand away, it flicks inwards. Elastic recoil. So this is like a crossbow. And the same the other way. I'm trying to push the elbow out, resisting, and then suddenly let it go and it will flick out. This is the elasticity of the tendons in the elbow, the ligaments. But with structural isometrics, I've got to create this resistance in the joint itself. So now I'm trying to pull it in and then I let go. Trying to push it out and then I let go. So I'm controlling the elastic recoil of the ligaments at any given position. Here, bending and straightening under resistance. So it's continual resistance, but with a smooth movement. You see, tricky to do, but this is the secret of internal power. This is what all these Qigong people are trying to do. This is what the internal Kung Fu people are trying to do. And I'm trying to explain this ever so simply, and that we can all get it. Now you see here with the shoulder. So now I'm doing the same thing. I've got to have mobility in the shoulder and the scapula and roll the shoulder about. I need to know the correct positioning of the shoulder, but once I've got that, then I can move the shoulder with this structural isometrics, this resistance, and release it with this elastic recoil. Now I'm doing the spine. So I've got to hold a nice spine. I'm twisting the spine but resisting, and then suddenly letting go so that it springs out. I'm creating elastic recoil through the spine. I've got to use the obliques, the TA muscle, pull the navel in and create this structural isometrics in the waistline itself. Then I use that to create this elastic recoil. Now you can see also with a punch, you see if I were to resist a punch and then suddenly let go, it flies forward and pull back. If I try and resist pulling back, then let go, it flies back. I'm creating elastic recoil through this structural isometrics in any direction. Here's a vertical spine. Now what I'm trying to do is maintain this perfect vertical spine. It's very efficient. Then pivot on it, again creating this isometric tension and releasing it. Now we can all try this together. You see, if you hold the arms out, keep the pit of the elbow up. Actually what I'm really trying to do is concentrate on the elbow tendons more than the muscle. Now bend the arms under resistance. So you bend them all the way back but resist all the way. So you're fighting against yourself. And same the other way. As you try and straighten the arms, you resist. You fight yourself all the way back. So you're creating this smooth movement under resistance. I also call this dynamic tendon isometrics, because you're concentrating on the joints, the ligaments and the tendons, but it's also dynamic. You're moving. Now we try this spring loading effect. So what we do now is bend the arms but resist, and lock it there. I don't let it move and then suddenly let go. So I'm really trying to bend, and then suddenly let go so it flicks inwards. And then the last one, really trying to bend and then let go and it flicks in. And the same the other way. Now I'm really trying to push out, resist and then let go, and it flicks out. see, I've got to create this spring load effect anywhere along the movement. Now let's have another look at the spine. And this is actually my basic exercise number 2, the spinal twist. You see, I stretch up, arms up and back, stretch open the rib cage, arch back, pull in the belly, and now twist left and right, again using the obliques, the TA muscle, and I'm resisting, twisting and resisting, isometric tension through the spine, all the way up to the top of the head. And now what I'm doing is letting it spring back. You see, the further I twist, the more I resist, and then I let go and it will bounce back to the middle. You see, I want to always bounce back to the neutral position, the midpoint. And again, this is another thing to do with this. This is a bit more advanced. Once you get the hang of how to do this isometric tension and release, then you want to try and do this together with the correct positioning. Now here I'm bending and arching and bending the spine both directions. Again, stretching out and letting it go the other way. You can see I tuck the pelvis in, arch forward, pull the belly in, and then arch back. Full motion of the spine under resistance. Now let's see this a bit further. Now this is the embracing the tree position, or the upright neutral stance. It's slightly different. The hands are stretched out. So now what I'm doing is creating a stretch through my body, this structural isometrics. I'm holding this position under tension, and now I'm gradually stretching away from that position, and the further away I stretch, the greater the tension I create. So this tension creates an elastic recoil and makes me want to spring back to the middle. So I have to create all this. This doesn't happen by itself. I have to know the correct positioning of my body, hold that position under isometric tension, and as I move away from it, that tension increases so that I want to spring back to the middle position. And now I create power and movement with this elastic recoil. And here you can see in martial arts, the effect of this is the ability to punch with power and stop it. So I'm purposely missing this wooden bar. I'm trying to get as close as possible, punch as hard and fast as possible, but not touch it. So this has got to be done in the same principle as I showed at the beginning, cutting the fruit. I've got to be able to stop the knife at the moment I want to stop it. And this is one of the practical uses of this structural isometrics training. Now here I'm doing it with a partner here, but you see the trick to this is the other person's arm is irrelevant. I've got to create tension all by myself, so then we're not even touching. So don't touch. I've got to bend and straighten my arm under my own isometric tension. So I'm creating a force and an elastic recoil all by myself. Nothing to do with the other person. It's all inside my own body. I've got to feel my own internal structure. Now once I do that, we're doing it together under resistance, but I've got to ignore him. He's got to ignore me. I'm just doing my own thing. It's got nothing to do, his force is irrelevant to me because I am creating so much tension and force in my own elbow that his force is irrelevant to me. It's quite subtle, but if you can do this, this is again as a secret to internal power in martial arts. I create my own power. What the other guy is doing is irrelevant. And if I can create enough power in my body, it's so powerful, whatever he does, it genuinely is irrelevant. He can't resist my power. But it's difficult to do. That takes a lot of training. Now here you can see me doing it with a machine. It's not too heavy, only 30 kilograms. But what I'm doing is very much concentrating on my structure, the alignment of my spine, the expansion of my rib cage, the use of my shoulder joint and scapula, the elbow, the wrist, and the stretch through my body. And once I've got that, I'm moving under my own isometric tension. The machine is irrelevant to me. You see, I increase the force as if there's 100 kilos there. There's only 30 kilos, but I do more work than is required for those 30 kilos. This is the key. I don't need a heavy weight because I am doing more work all by myself under my own isometric tension. And I'm trying to even out that work through my whole structure. So you've got to watch this whole series from the beginning. I've got to get the spine right. I've got to get the alignment of the hips and the shoulders right. I've got to get the method of collapsing the arms and legs right. And these are the first 4 principles. Then I've got to get the feeling of elastic recoil. And then after that, I've got to create the control. I've got to master the complete control of my body structure. So now here you can see the elbows in. So now I'm really isolating the elbow joints. So again, I'm trying the whole thing in a different movement. I just play around with this. But I've got to use the whole body. You see, I'm also getting a horse riding stance. My legs are also involved. You see, it's all sorts of things. The whole body has got to work together as a single unit, and that single unit has got to be held in the right alignment for the most efficient structure for power and speed. Now here you can see me do it, moving into actual martial arts. You see, but this again is not any particular style. This style is simply the most efficient structure for your body, and then holding that structure under this isometric tension. Hence it's structural isometrics. Then I'm moving around with this structure, changing it, but always trying to maintain as close as possible to it or spring back to it. See, notice the S curve in the spine. Notice my shoulders are up and back. Notice how the legs and the hips are open at the front but also open at the back. I'm keeping a vertical spine, pivoting along that alignment, and then extending my arms and legs out from that. But every movement I do is smooth but under resistance. I'm always holding an isometric tension when I move my arms inwards or outwards. And I'm trying to create this elastic recoil effect. You see, the elastic recoil has got to always be there, not just at the end. So I create it by trying to stretch out the joints, but resisting stretching out the joints. So they want to spring out, but I'm stopping them. Then I can at any moment suddenly spring them out. Now here's embracing the tree again. You see, this is the main structure to hold. This is the upright neutral stance, and if I can get this structure right, it is the most efficient geometry for transmission of force through the body. I want the force to go through the bone structure, and the only way I can get it to go through the bone structure is if I hold the bones in the right position. You see, when force is applied to you, or you're trying to generate force, if you lose alignment, that force dissipates in the wrong place. You must have the right alignment. You see, the alignment's got to come first. So you've got to get the spine right, the hips and the shoulders right. Then the movement of the arms and legs, the concertina effect has got to be there. Then you've got to be able to feel the stretch, the elastic recoil. Once you've got that, then you've got to be able to control it all with this structural isometrics. So it requires a good mind-body connection. You've got to be aware of what you're doing. You've got to feel inside your body, and you've got to control it. Okay, I hope this made sense. Do check out the other videos in the series, and the next one, number 6, is going to be coming very soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.